I'm Jane Alaribo and I'm your English teacher. I'll be taking you on the topic simple past tense in grammatical accuracy. I'll teach you how to form the simple past tense and how to use the simple past tense. At the end of the lesson, I'm sure you will know how to form and how to use the past tense correctly. Before we go into the simple past tense, it's important that we know what verbs are. I'm sure you do things every day. Your days are made up of or are filled with actions. For example, you go to school, you eat, you take your bath, you go out, you play with friends. All these things that you do every day, the words we use in describing them are called verbs. Verbs are words which we use in describing our actions. That is why verbs are also known as action words or doing words. One way we can identify verbs is by knowing that verbs answer the question do. For example, you asked, what did you do? What will you do? Or what are you doing? You know that the answer you give as what you have done or what you will do or what you are doing is what we refer to as verbs. Take note of the word do. Verbs answer the question do. Now, let's look at some examples of verbs. We said we use verbs to describe our actions, right? I am playing football. From our definition of verb, can you identify the verb in the sentence? It's playing. That is what I am doing. We walked across the field. What did we do? We walked. The dog barked. The verb in the sentence is barked. That is what the dog did. The man is riding his bicycle to the office. What is he doing? He's riding. She bought some foodstuff from the market. We use verbs to describe our actions. Now we are going to go into tense forms. What are tense forms? Verbs have different tense forms, and tense forms help us to talk about actions or things that we do at different times. We do things every day. You must have done something yesterday. You've done things today. You're going to do things tomorrow and in the time to come. These different times that we carry out our actions, they are shown in tense forms. We cannot talk about things that we did yesterday, things that we are doing today, things we do tomorrow in the same way. No. These tense forms help us to show the different times that we carry out different actions. Which brings us into our main lesson for today, past tense. The past tense is used to talk about things that we have already done in the time before we are speaking about it. We use the past tense to talk about things that have happened at a particular time in the past. For example, you go to school and your friend asks you, what did you do yesterday night? You can say, I watched TV last night. How do we form the past tense? We form the past tense of most verbs in the English grammar by adding ed to the verb. This word here, what do we call it? Play. Play is a verb. Why? Play is something you do. So the word play describes an action. So now to put play in the past tense, what do? We add ed to it, making it played. So you can easily say, we played football yesterday. If you remember our first example, it's I watched TV last night. Can you see something in the sentence? Ed. We form the past tense of most verbs in the English grammar by adding ed. Now let's look at more examples. I washed my clothes on Saturday. She passed her exams last term. I killed a cockroach last night. We visited the village last Christmas. Their dogs barked all night. We can identify the verbs, right? Washed, passed, killed, visited, and barked. And can you see that they have something in common? Yes, they do. They all have ed added to them to show that these actions were carried out in the past. Now we are going to go further to learning about verbs that end with e. We have just learned that you add ed to most verbs to form the past tense. What about verbs that end with e? Verbs like dance, close, bake, change, and wipe. Do we add ed to such verbs? No. For example, dance. Dance ends with an e. Do we add ed to dance, making it danced? That sounds very wrong, right? It's incorrect. To form the past tense of words that end with e in their main or original form, we add just d to it. Dance plus d, danced, and this is the correct form. So whenever you come across a word or a verb that ends with e and you want to put it in the past tense, you add just d to it to form the past. Adela danced very well at the party. Mother baked some delicious cakes yesterday. I changed the bed sheets this morning. Now, apart from verbs that end with e, we also have verbs that end with y. Now it's going to get tricky, but if you follow me, you'll understand. We have verbs that end with the letter y, such as copy, fry, and study. Now, to put such verbs in the past tense, what do? Listen carefully. We replace the letter y in the verb with I, and then we add ed. We have copy. Copy ends with the letter y. So to put it in the past tense, we replace y with I, and then we add ed, making it copied. This is the correct form. Now, I'm going to teach you something else about this kind of verbs that end with y as we go on in the lesson. But first, let's look at more examples of these verbs in sentences. Examples. Chigozie copied the notes from the board. Auntie Nene fried plantain for us this morning. I studied for the test last night. I told you it's going to get tricky. Now you must note that we do this only for verbs that end with y and have a consonant before the letter y. Take a look at copy. We have p before y. Here we have r before y. And here we have d before y. So when you have a verb that ends with y but has a consonant before the y, then you replace the letter y with I, and then you add ed like we have learned. But when you have a verb that ends with y but has a vowel before the letter y, we do not replace the letter y with I. We just add ed. What are vowels? Vowels are a, e, I, o, and u. These are the vowels we have in the alphabet. Every other letter besides these 5 letters are consonants. So whenever you come across any of these letters before y, you do not replace the y with I. You just add ed, like it is for the word pray. We have a vowel A before the letter Y. So we do not replace Y with I, we just add ed, making it prayed. You understand that, right? Now, let's see some examples. We prayed for the sick lady. He obeyed the old man. I played with the school team last year. We have a vowel before Y in prayed. We have a vowel E before Y in obey. And we have a vowel A before Y in play. That is why we just add ed to form the past tense. Now we have these verbs that we do not add ed or ied or just d to them to form the past tense. They are called irregular verbs. For example, eat. When you come across the word eat, you do not say eated. That is very wrong. The word changes to ate. Also, we have the word go, and the past tense of go is went. Sit, sat. Fall, fell. Take, took. Give, gave. Buy, bought. Speak, spoke. Run, ran. Catch, caught. And drink becomes drank in the past tense. Bring, brought. Fly, flew. Sing, sang. Sleep, slept. And steal, stole. Note that these are not the only irregular verbs which we have in the English grammar. There are so many. So always consult your dictionary to know the correct past tense form of different verbs. Let's look at some of these irregular verbs in sentences. We ate rice in the afternoon. We went to the zoo on Saturday. Mother bought some oranges from the market yesterday. The teacher gave us new exercise books this morning. Chioma sang a special song in church on Sunday. These are all irregular verbs. Now we also form the past tense using words like was and were. These words, they show the state or the condition in which something was in. That is, it could be what you were doing or how you're feeling. But remember, we're talking about the past tense. So whatever you're talking about using was and were, we are talking about the past. Let's see was and were in sentences. I was very hungry yesterday night. Remember, I said it shows the state in which someone was in. So I was very hungry shows that is how I was feeling yesterday night. We were at home by 6 p.m. yesterday. Last year, Ada was the best in her class. I was tired this morning. They were very happy with their first term results. Now I know you might be wondering, where does these words come from? Was and were. Well, was and were come from the verb to be. The verb be. Now the verb to be is used in expressing the present condition or the state of a person or something. And this verb to be has different forms. What are the forms of the verb to be? Am, are, and is. But now we're talking about the past tense. So we're going to use these forms of the verb to be in the past. So the past tense of am is was. Now you know where we got the word was from, right? The past tense of are is were. and the past tense of is was. So this is how we came up with the words was and were. They are the past tense of the forms of the verb to be, and they all mean the same thing. They all show the condition of something. We use these words am, are, and is in the present tense, and we use was and were in the past. It's very simple, right? Yes. That's all for the past tense, and I'm sure you've learned the different ways we can form the past tense with different verbs. Now let's do a brief recap of everything that we have learned today. The first thing we learned is verbs are words which we use to describe our actions. Everything you do every day. You eat, you go to school, you walk, you talk, you run, you play. All these words are called verbs. We also said verbs have tense forms which help us to show the different times that we carry out different actions. We also learned that we use the past tense to talk about things that have already happened in the past. And we form the past tense by adding ed or d to the verb. We also learned that we use ied for words that end with y but have a consonant before the letter y. And we also learned that we use the words was and were to form the past tense. The words was and were are the past tense form of the verb to be. And we also learned about those irregular verbs that totally change form in the past tense. That was a very interesting lesson, right? I hope that by now you can form the past tense with different verbs and also use the past tense correctly. That's the end of our lesson on the simple past tense. Bye.